Disgusting animals like you belong in the zoo, not here. The ice-cold water hit Amara's face like a slap. The crystal pitcher followed, striking her temple before crashing to the marble floor. Shards scattered around her designer heels. Brittany Walsh stood over the soaked black woman, blonde hair perfectly styled, designer apron spotless. Her manicured finger pointed at the spreading puddle. "Look what you made me do. So clumsy." Water dripped from Amara's silk blouse onto her lap dot. Every diner stared. She sat frozen, a successful woman reduced to a spectacle. Her wedding ring sparkled through the water droplets on her dark skin. Have you ever been so crushed in public that you questioned your worth? What if that moment of cruelty awakened something no one expected? Water still dripped from Amara's hair onto her silk collar. Each drop felt like another slap. She remained seated, spine straight, hands folded on the soaked tablecloth. The dining room buzzed with whispers. Phones tilted in her direction. The puddle around her chair spread wider, reflecting the crystal chandelier above. "Ma'am, you're creating a disturbance." Derek Stevens, the floor manager, appeared beside her table. His pressed white shirt and gold name tag gleamed under the lights. He surveyed the water damage with theatrical concern. "This mess needs immediate attention. Our other guests are being affected." Brittany circled back, a fresh pitcher of ice water balanced on her tray. Her blue eyes sparkled with malice. "Should I call maintenance? Or will she clean up her own disaster?" Amara's fingers tightened slightly on her waterproof Hermes purse. The black leather remained pristine despite the soaking. Her Patek Philippe watch, still functioning, showed 8:17 p.m. Vincent flashed across her platinum phone screen. She declined the call. Derek crossed his arms. "Ma'am, I'm going to need you to settle the cleaning fee and leave. You've disrupted the entire section." "Cleaning fee?" Amara's voice was quiet, controlled. "Water damage to our Italian marble floors, emotional distress to other patrons, loss of atmosphere." He gestured broadly. "This is a 5-star establishment." Brittany set her fresh pitcher down with deliberate force. Water sloshed over the rim. "Since you obviously can't afford to eat here anyway, maybe McDonald's is more your speed. They have high chairs for children who can't handle grown-up restaurants." The insult hung in the air. 3 tables over, a woman in diamonds whispered to her companion. Someone's Instagram story captured Amara's wet silhouette against the white walls. 43 minutes until my dinner companion arrives," Amara said, checking her watch again. Water droplets beaded on the sapphire crystal. Derek's laugh was sharp. "Your imaginary friend? Ma'am, we're not running a charity here. Either pay for the damage or security will escort you out." 2 guards in black uniforms appeared at the dining room's edge. Their hands rested on their radios. The message was clear. Amara's phone buzzed again. Another text from Vincent. "Traffic bad. 25 more minutes. You okay?" She typed back with steady fingers. "Just staying hydrated." Brittany leaned closer, her voice dropping to a venomous whisper. "Look at you, sitting there all wet and pathetic. This is what happens when people like you forget your place. You don't belong in spaces like this." She straightened, speaking louder now for the audience. "I've worked in fine dining for 6 years. I can spot the ones who can't afford the appetizers from across the room. Designer knockoffs don't fool anyone, honey." The live stream comments multiplied. Chateau Blanc drama was trending. Split opinions flooded the feed. "That poor woman needs help. She's probably scamming for free food. Why won't she just leave?" "Brittany's handling this perfectly." Derek pulled out his phone. "I'm calling the police. This has gone on long enough." Amara's breathing remained steady. Her diamond wedding ring, a 3-carat emerald cut that cost more than most people's cars, caught the light through the water droplets on her dark skin. "My husband is Vincent," she said quietly. "Vincent Torino." Neither Derek nor Brittany reacted. The name meant nothing to them. An elderly woman at table 12 filmed everything on her iPad. Her granddaughter posted it to TikTok with the caption, "Karen getting owned at fancy restaurant." The water on Amara's blouse had turned the navy fabric nearly black. Her vintage Chanel pearls, each one hand-selected in Tahiti, were now swimming in humiliation. Yet she sat motionless, like a queen on a throne. Brittany picked up her pitcher again. "You want more? Because I've got plenty where that came from." Maybe a nice cold shower will wake you up to reality. The threat was unmistakable. More water, more public degradation, more viral content. Derek nodded approvingly. Last chance, ma'am. Pay up and get out, or we'll have you removed for trespassing and property damage. The security guards stepped closer. Their boots squeaked on the marble floor, avoiding the spreading puddle. Amara's phone showed 18 missed calls from Vincent. She set it face down on the wet tablecloth. 22 minutes, she whispered to herself, eyes on her watch. The dining room held its collective breath. 50 strangers watched a black woman drowning in shame, waiting to see if she would break. But Amara Johnson Torino had learned patience from the best. Her husband had taught her that power revealed itself only when necessary, that true strength lay in stillness before the storm. She folded her hands and waited for the thunder. The water on Amara's clothes had begun to chill. Her silk blouse clung uncomfortably to her skin, but she didn't move, didn't flinch. The puddle beneath her chair had spread to encompass the entire dining area around table 7. 18 minutes, she whispered, checking her Patek Philippe again. Brittany's patience had evaporated. She grabbed the fresh water pitcher with both hands, ice cubes clinking against the glass. You know what? I think you need another drink. Brittany, wait! Derek started, but she was already moving. The second deluge was worse than the first. Frigid water cascaded over Amara's head, soaking through her hair to her scalp. It ran down her neck, pooling in her collar, streaming down her arms. Her vintage Chanel pearls disappeared beneath the waterfall. This time she shivered, just once. There, maybe now you'll understand what temperature your welcome is. Brittany slammed the empty pitcher on the marble table. The sound echoed like a gunshot. The dining room erupted. Half the patrons gasped in shock. The other half pulled out their phones for better angles. Oh my God, she did it again! A college girl at table 3 live-streamed frantically. This is insane! The server just threw more water on her! Derek stepped closer, emboldened by the crowd's reaction. Maybe now you'll get the message. This is what happens when people like you try to play dress-up in establishments meant for your betters. He gestured at her soaked form with disgust. Look at yourself, sitting there like a drowned rat, pretending you have any dignity left. Amanda Carter, the food blogger, zoomed in on Amara's dripping face. This is unprecedented. I've covered restaurant incidents for 5 years and never seen anything like this level of public humiliation. Her viewer count hit 8,492 and climbing. A businessman at table 9 called out, Someone should call Adult Protective Services. This woman clearly has mental issues. His lunch companion nodded. Probably off her medication. These people often have problems with reality. The casual cruelty spread like ripples across the dining room, each table adding their own commentary, their own theories about the soaked black woman who wouldn't leave. Sarah Carter stepped forward, her corporate training warring with the spectacle before her. Brittany, that was excessive. Excessive? Derek's voice rose defensively. She's been sitting here for 28 minutes now, dripping all over our floors, disturbing our guests, refusing to pay for damages. What were we supposed to do? Let her turn this into a homeless shelter? The insult drew snickers from nearby tables. Someone's phone camera caught it all. 2 more security guards appeared from the kitchen. 4 men in black now formed a semicircle around Amara's table. The message was unmistakable. Resistance was futile. Rodriguez, the head of security, crossed his arms. Ma'am, this ends now. You're making everyone uncomfortable. Amara's phone buzzed. Vincent's text. 15 minutes out. Traffic clearing. She typed back with trembling fingers. Getting a little wet. Nothing I can't handle. Water droplets fell from her hands onto the screen. Look at her, whispered Mrs. Pemberton from table 12. Still pretending she belongs here. The delusion is sad, really. Her husband adjusted his gold watch. Should we call the authorities? This seems like a mental health situation. Their conversation carried across the silent dining room. Everyone heard, everyone judged. Brittany walked a slow circle around Amara's chair like a predator sizing up wounded prey. You're absolutely pathetic, sitting there soaking wet, pretending your imaginary husband is coming to save you. She stopped directly behind Amara's chair, leaning down to speak into her ear. What kind of man would marry this? Someone so delusional they think they can afford a place like Chateau Blanc? The whispered cruelty was worse than the shouting. More intimate, more personal. "I bet you don't even have a husband," Brittany continued. "Probably made him up just like you made up having money, just like you made up belonging here." Several diners looked away, uncomfortable but unwilling to intervene. Derek produced an iPad from behind his back. "Ma'am, I'm going to need you to sign this incident report. It documents the property damage, the disturbance to other guests, and your refusal to comply with reasonable requests." He placed it on the wet table. Water immediately beaded on the screen. "There's also a trespassing notice. If you don't leave in the next 5 minutes, you'll be arrested." Amara glanced at the document. It was all there. $300 cleaning fee, $500 atmosphere disruption charge, $200 security response fee, $150 emotional distress to staff, $75 additional sanitization costs. $1,225, she said quietly. "Plus tax and processing fees," Derek added with satisfaction. "Call it $1,500 all told. Cash or credit?" The live stream comments exploded. $1,500 for sitting while black? This has to be illegal. Where are the lawyers in chat? Sue them into bankruptcy. She should have just left when asked. Play stupid games, win stupid prizes. This is America in 2024 inches, record everything. A local news reporter had arrived. Miranda Wells from Channel 7 set up her camera crew near the entrance. "This is Miranda Wells reporting from Chateau Blanc in Manhattan, where a discrimination incident is unfolding in real time." Her cameraman focused on Amara's soaked silhouette against the white walls. The story was going citywide. #Chateau Blanc Watergate now had 50,000 posts across platforms. Sarah Carter's phone rang continuously. Corporate, legal, PR department. The calls were relentless. "Corporate wants this resolved immediately," Sarah announced, hanging up from the 5th call in 2 minutes. "The story's already trending on Twitter and TikTok." She approached Amara with practiced diplomacy, but barely concealed panic. "Ma'am, I understand this situation has escalated beyond anyone's intentions. If you'll just settle the incident fee and agree not to pursue legal action, we can all put this behind us." Amara's wedding ring caught the light as she folded her hands. The 3-carat diamond was worth more than most people's cars, but under the water and harsh lighting, it just looked like glass. "My husband should be here in 12 minutes. "Your husband?" Sarah's voice cracked slightly. "Ma'am, if someone was actually coming, they would have been here by now. Please think about what this looks like." At table 15, a group of young professionals made no effort to lower their voices. This is exactly why these places need dress codes. She's probably an influencer trying to create content. Bet she's recording this for a lawsuit. Good for the staff for standing up to scammers. Brittany leaned down to whisper in Amara's ear again. "You're making yourself look like a fool. Everyone in here knows you're lying. No successful man would marry someone who gets themselves thrown out of restaurants." She straightened, speaking louder. "I mean, look at the state of you. What respectable person sits in their own mess for half an hour?" 10 minutes, Amara said to herself, checking her watch again. Rodriguez stepped forward, his radio crackling. "Ma'am, I really don't want to have to physically remove you, but you're trespassing now. The manager has asked you to leave multiple times." His radio crackled louder. Police dispatch. "Units responding to Chateau Blanc for a trespassing complaint. ETA 4 minutes. The room tensed. This was escalating beyond a simple restaurant dispute into something that would make the evening news. Derek smiled triumphantly. "You hear that? The NYPD is en route. Last chance to handle this quietly and save yourself from a criminal record." Amara's phone showed 26 missed calls from Vincent. She declined another one, her fingers leaving water spots on the screen. "Ma'am, please." Sarah tried one more time, desperation creeping into her professional voice. "This has become a circus. Think about your dignity." The word dignity fell like ice into the room. After everything that had happened, after 2 pitchers of water, after the whispers and the filming and the threats and the fees, they were talking about her dignity. Amara Johnson Torino looked up for the first time in 32 minutes. Her dark eyes swept the room methodically, taking in every face, every phone, every judgmental expression. She stood slowly, water cascading from her clothes onto the marble floor. Her designer heels squelched in the expanded puddle. Her Hermes purse dripped steadily but remained elegantly intact. The dining room held its collective breath. 8 minutes, she said clearly, her voice carrying across the silent restaurant. My husband will be here in 8 minutes. Ma'am? Rodriguez started. His name is Vincent Torino. Her voice was steady, certain. You might want to Google that name. A few diners immediately pulled out their phones. Their faces went pale as search results loaded. Derek laughed nervously. Ma'am, I don't care if you claim to be married to the president. You're still trespassing. But something had shifted in the room. The way Amara stood, the quiet certainty in her voice. The fact that she'd endured 32 minutes of systematic humiliation without breaking. Sarah Carter's phone buzzed. A text from someone who'd been watching the live stream. Do not call police. Research Vincent Torino immediately. This is about to get very bad for you. Outside, 5 black SUVs with heavily tinted windows pulled up to the curb in perfect formation. Amara smiled for the first time all evening. Cold, knowing, dangerous. He's early. The restaurant's glass doors opened with a whisper. Vincent Torino stepped inside first. 45 years old, silver threading through dark hair, wearing a charcoal Armani suit that cost more than most people's monthly salary. His Italian leather shoes made no sound on the marble floor. Behind him, 15 men in identical black suits filed in with military precision. No jewelry, no visible weapons, just presence that filled the room like smoke. The dining room fell silent. Conversations died mid-sentence. Forks froze halfway to mouths. Vincent's eyes found his wife immediately, took in her soaked hair, her ruined silk blouse, the water pooling around her designer heels. His jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. He walked through the crowd like Moses parting the Red Sea. Diners pressed back against their chairs, suddenly fascinated by their plates. Mrs. Torino! His voice was velvet over steel. He reached her table and carefully removed his $3,000 jacket, draping it around her wet shoulders. The fabric was warm, expensive, protective. I'm sorry I'm late, sweetheart. Derek's iPad slipped from his trembling hands. It hit the marble floor with a sharp crack, screen spider webbing across the incident report. Oh my God, Sarah Carter whispered. Her face had gone ash white. Vincent Torino! The Vincent Torino! The name ricocheted through the dining room like a gunshot. Phones that had been recording suddenly disappeared into purses and pockets. The live streamers ended their streams. The food blogger deleted her footage. Everyone in New York knew that name. Construction King, Union Connections, the family that owned half of Manhattan's infrastructure projects. Vincent's men positioned themselves throughout the restaurant. Not threatening, just present. Watching, remembering faces. Darling, Vincent said to Amara, his voice tender but his eyes scanning the room like a predator. You seem to have gotten a little wet. He picked up the empty water pitcher from her table, examined it, set it down with deliberate care. Who did this? The question hung in the air like a blade, simple words that somehow contained multitudes of consequence. Brittany tried to shrink behind Derek. Her blonde hair, so perfectly styled minutes ago, now looked garish under the restaurant's lights. Her hands shook as she clutched her serving tray. Derek stepped forward, corporate training warring with primal fear. Mr. Torino, sir, there's been a misunderstanding. A misunderstanding. Vincent's voice never rose above conversational level. That somehow made it more terrifying. My wife comes to dinner, gets soaked with ice water, twice, and you call it a misunderstanding. He gestured to one of his men, who immediately produced a phone and began photographing the scene. The water damage, Amara's condition, the broken iPad, everything. Carlo, document this, every detail. Sarah Carter found her voice. Mr. Torino, we had no idea. You had no idea she was my wife. Vincent's dark eyes fixed on her. But you knew she was a human being. You knew she deserved basic respect. Those facts shouldn't require my presence to establish. At table 12, Mrs. Pemberton was frantically deleting the video she'd posted to Facebook. Her husband looked like he might have a heart attack. The college girl who'd been live streaming tried to slip out through the bathroom, but one of Vincent's men was already there, holding the door closed with just his presence. Nobody leaves, Vincent said quietly. Not yet. Amanda Carter, the food blogger, raised a shaking hand. Mr. Torino, I was just documenting. You were documenting my wife's humiliation for entertainment. His voice cut through her excuse like a scalpel. 8,000 viewers watched her suffer. For content. He turned back to Brittany, who was now openly crying. You threw water on her, twice. I didn't know. I'm sorry, I'm so sorry. You didn't know what? That she was human? That she had feelings? That public humiliation might hurt her? Vincent's questions came like hammer blows. Or you didn't know she was protected? Derek tried to regain control. Sir, this is private property. We have the right to refuse service. Vincent's laugh was winter cold. Private property. Interesting. He pulled out his phone, speed-dialed a number. Marco? Yes, it's Vincent. I'm at Chateau Blanc on 5th. Run the ownership structure for me. He waited 30 seconds. The restaurant was tomb silent. Chateau Blanc Holdings, subsidiary of Metropolitan Restaurant Group, which is 63% owned by Torino Construction's pension fund. Vincent's smile never reached his eyes. So, technically, Derek, this is my private property. The blood drained from Derek's face. The incident report suddenly seemed very, very expensive. Sarah Carter's phone buzzed, then buzzed again. Text after text from corporate executives who'd finally connected the dots. Her professional smile cracked completely. Mr. Torino, we can resolve this. The staff was what? Following training? Company policy? Vincent looked around the room, his gaze settling on each face that had mocked his wife. Are your servers trained to assault customers? Is harassment part of your service model? Rodriguez, the security chief, stepped forward. Sir, we were responding to a disturbance. You were responding to a black woman existing in your restaurant. Vincent's words hit like physical blows. She sat quietly at a table waiting for her husband. That was her crime. One of Vincent's men whispered something in Italian. Vincent nodded. Apparently, the police are en route. Brittany here called them to report my wife for trespassing. He looked at the crying server. In her own restaurant. The implications settled over the room like fog. This wasn't just about customer service anymore. This was about power, real power, the kind that built cities and destroyed careers with a single phone call. Vincent knelt beside Amara's chair, water from the floor soaking into his expensive suit pants. He didn't seem to notice or care. Are you hurt? His voice, so cold to everyone else, was gentle with her. Amara shook her head. Just wet and tired. We'll go home soon, but first, he stood, scanning the room again. Everyone who filmed this, everyone who mocked her, everyone who participated in her humiliation, I want their names. Carlo, his lieutenant, was already moving through the restaurant, politely asking for identification, taking pictures of faces, building a list. You can't do this, Derek protested weakly. This is America. We have rights. You have rights, Vincent agreed. The right to treat people with dignity, the right to basic human decency, rights you chose not to exercise with my wife. The restaurant's landline rang. Sarah Carter answered with shaking hands. Chateau Blanc. Yes, this is the manager. What? All of them? Right now? Her face went green. Yes, sir. Immediately. She hung up. That was corporate headquarters. You're all suspended, effective immediately. The entire front of house staff. Brittany collapsed into a chair, sobbing. Derek stood frozen, his career evaporating in real time. Vincent checked his watch, a Patek Philippe Nautilus that cost more than most people's cars. The police should be here soon. I think they'll find this situation very interesting. He pulled out his phone again. Detective Morrison? Vincent Torino. Yes, that's right. I'm at Chateau Blanc on 5th Avenue. My wife was assaulted here tonight. Water thrown on her, threatened, harassed. He paused, listening. Yes, I'll wait for you. The word assaulted hung in the air like a judgment. What had been a restaurant incident was now a criminal matter. Amara stood slowly, Vincent's jacket still draped around her shoulders. Water continued to drip from her ruined clothes, but her spine was straight, her head high. She looked directly at Brittany, who was still crying. I forgive you, she said quietly. But forgiveness doesn't erase consequences. Then she turned to Derek, to Sarah Carter, to every face that had watched her humiliation with entertainment rather than empathy. You saw a black woman alone and decided she was prey. That was your first mistake. She walked to Vincent's side, her wet heels clicking on marble. Your second mistake was not knowing who hunts the hunters. Outside, police sirens wailed in the distance, growing closer. Vincent wrapped his arm around his wife, careful not to let her feel alone for even a moment longer. The restaurant held its breath, waiting for justice. Detective Morrison arrived with 3 patrol cars and a crime scene photographer. He was a lean man in his 50s who'd worked enough cases involving the Torino family to know when to tread carefully. Vincent, he nodded respectfully. Mrs. Torino, I understand there's been an incident. Vincent's jacket still wrapped around Amara's shoulders, but now it looked less like comfort and more like armor. She sat regally in her chair, water still dripping onto marble, but somehow commanding the entire restaurant. Detective, my wife was assaulted, twice, with water thrown directly at her head and body, in front of 50 witnesses. Vincent's voice carried the precision of a man accustomed to being heard. The perpetrators are still on premises. Morrison's photographer began documenting the scene. The empty pitchers, the spreading water damage, Amara's soaked clothing, the broken iPad with its incident report still visible through the cracked screen. Ma'am, are you injured? Morrison asked Amara directly. Physically, no, but dignity wounds differently than fists. Her quiet response seemed to land harder than any scream would have. Sarah Carter's phone hadn't stopped ringing. Corporate executives, lawyers, crisis management firms. Her hands shook as she answered the latest call. Yes, sir. Vincent Torino himself. Yes, the Vincent Torino. No, sir, I don't think flowers will fix this. How much? Jesus Christ. She hung up, face ashen, turned to Vincent with the desperation of the professionally drowning. Mr. Torino, corporate has authorized me to offer full compensation for tonight's misunderstanding. Whatever you think is fair. Vincent studied her like a biologist examining an interesting specimen. Compensation for what, specifically? The inconvenience, the unfortunate service failure. Service failure. Vincent's repetition made the word sound absurd. Is that what we're calling assault now? Poor customer service? Carlo whispered in Vincent's ear, showing him his phone screen. Numbers, financial data. Vincent nodded slowly. Tell me about Chateau Blanc's revenue structure, Sarah. The sudden shift to business caught her off guard. What? Annual revenue, profit margins, debt structure. You're the regional manager. You should know these things. Sarah fumbled with her phone, pulling up corporate data. Annual revenue is approximately $4.7 million. Net profit margin runs about 18%. We carry a $2 million renovation loan at Prime plus 2. Good. And Metropolitan Restaurant Group, your parent company? 15 locations across New York and New Jersey. Total revenue around $40 million annually. Vincent smiled. It wasn't a pleasant expression. Carlo, what did our research turn up? His lieutenant consulted his tablet. Torino Construction Pension Fund owns 63% of Metropolitan Restaurant Group, acquired in 2019 as part of the Harbor Point development deal. Total investment, $24.8 million. The numbers hit the room like physical blows. Vincent wasn't just some angry husband. He was their majority shareholder. So let me understand the situation, Vincent continued conversationally. My employees at my restaurant assaulted my wife, then demanded she pay $1,500 for the privilege. Derek tried to speak. Sir, we didn't know. You didn't know she was my wife, but you knew she was a paying customer. You knew she hadn't broken any laws. You knew throwing water on someone was assault. Vincent's voice never rose, but somehow filled the entire space. Those facts shouldn't require my ownership to establish. Detective Morrison finished examining the evidence. Mrs. Torino, do you wish to press charges? Before Amara could answer, Vincent's phone rang. He glanced at it, frowned. Excuse me. I need to take this. He stepped a few feet away, but his voice carried clearly in the silent restaurant. Yeah, Mickey. I'm at the restaurant now. What? All of them? When? His expression darkened. No, don't do anything yet. Let me handle this first. He returned to the group, but something had shifted. The controlled anger was now laser-focused fury. Sarah, how many Torino construction projects does Metropolitan Restaurant Group occupy space in? I don't know off the top of my head. 12 buildings. Harbor Point, the Meridian Complex, 3 Manhattan Plaza. Your leases run through 2031, all with Torino subsidiaries. Vincent's smile was winter cold. All at very favorable rates, I might add. The implications settled over Sarah like concrete. Vincent wasn't just their majority owner. He was their landlord. Carlo, what's the market rate for comparable restaurant space in Midtown? Current market would put their rent at approximately 400% of what they're paying now, Mr. Torino. 400%. Vincent let that number hang in the air. Interesting how quickly real estate values can fluctuate. Sarah's phone buzzed with an urgent text. She read it, her face crumbling. What is it? Derek asked. Corporate just got calls from all our other landlords. Maintenance issues, health inspections scheduled, permit reviews. Her voice cracked. All 12 locations. Vincent checked his watch again. It's amazing how word travels in this business. One phone call and suddenly everyone remembers their civic duties. Detective Morrison cleared his throat. Mr. Torino, we still need to address the assault charges. Brittany, who'd been sobbing quietly in the corner, suddenly stood. Please, I'm sorry. I didn't mean... I was just having a bad day, and she looked like she didn't belong, and I thought, I'm so sorry. You thought what? Amara spoke for the first time in minutes. Her voice was gentle, but the question cut deep. That I didn't belong in a restaurant I partially own? That my money wasn't as good as theirs? Brittany's tears flowed harder. I didn't know. I swear I didn't know. You didn't know I was married to Vincent, but you knew I was human. Amara stood slowly, Vincent's jacket still around her shoulders like royal robes. You knew water was cold. You knew humiliation hurt. You chose to do it anyway. She looked around the restaurant, her gaze settling on each face that had watched her degradation with entertainment. Every person in this room saw a black woman sitting alone and decided she was acceptable prey. Not one person stood up. Not one person said, that's enough. Her voice carried the weight of generations. That tells me everything I need to know about who you are. Vincent's phone buzzed with another text. He smiled grimly. That was my lawyer. Apparently the video footage from tonight has already been submitted to the State Human Rights Division, the NAACP Legal Defense Fund, and the Department of Justice Civil Rights Division. He looked directly at Sarah. Federal discrimination suits carry penalties of up to $10 million per incident. Sarah felt the room spinning. $10 million per incident? Water thrown at her head. That's incident 1. Second pitcher. That's incident 2. Demanding payment for sitting while black. Incident 3. Should I continue? Carlo consulted his tablet again. The live stream footage shows clear federal civil rights violations, multiple witnesses, social media evidence, pattern of discriminatory behavior. Pattern! Derek's voice cracked. Oh yes, we did some research while waiting for the police. Vincent gestured to Carlo. Tell them what else you found. Chateau Blanc has been cited 17 times in the past 2 years for discriminatory seating practices, mostly dismissing Black and Latino customers to inferior tables near the kitchen or bathroom. Carlo's voice was clinical, factual. The State Human Rights Commission has received 43 complaints about this specific location. The number hit like a sledgehammer. This wasn't an isolated incident. This was institutional racism with a paper trail. Sarah Carter looked like she might faint. 17 citations, how is that possible? Because you were never held accountable. Vincent's voice carried the finality of judgment. Tonight, that changes. Detective Morrison stepped forward. Mrs. Torino, I need your decision on criminal charges. Amara looked at Brittany, still crying. At Derek, sweating through his pressed shirt. At Sarah, clutching her phone like a lifeline. I want them to understand what they did wrong. Really understand. She paused, her wet hair catching the restaurant's soft lighting. Vincent, what would happen to this restaurant if we withdrew our investment? Vincent consulted his phone. Metropolitan Restaurant Group would need to cover the $24.8 million immediately. Given their debt structure and current cash flow, he shrugged. Bankruptcy within 90 days, all 15 locations closed, roughly 400 people unemployed. The weight of that number settled over the room. 400 families affected by one woman's cruelty. What about if we just restructured the management? Amara's question hung in the air like a sword. That could work, Vincent agreed. New management team, comprehensive bias training, Independent monitoring of service standards. Zero-tolerance policy backed by financial penalties. Sarah saw the lifeline and grabbed it. Yes, we can do that. Complete restructuring, whatever you want. And the individuals responsible? Vincent's gaze swept over Brittany and Derek like a scythe. Termination with cause. No severance, no references. Industry blacklist. Done, Sarah said immediately. They're terminated, effective immediately. Brittany's sobs turned to wails. Please, I need this job. I have student loans. You should have thought about that before you decided to assault my wife, Vincent replied calmly. Detective Morrison made notes in his pad. Mrs. Torino, criminal charges? Amara was quiet for a long moment. The restaurant waited for her judgment. Yes, assault charges for both incidents. Let them explain to a jury why they thought it was acceptable to throw water at a black woman for existing in their space. Morrison nodded, signaling to the uniformed officers. Brittany Walsh, Derek Stevens, you're under arrest for assault in the 3rd degree. As the handcuffs clicked shut, Vincent wrapped his arm around his wife. Ready to go home? Amara nodded, but turned back to address the room one final time. You all have phones. You all recorded this. When you post those videos, remember, this isn't about money or power. This is about basic human dignity, something that should never have required my husband's intervention to secure. She walked toward the door, water still dripping from her clothes, but somehow she looked like the most powerful person in the room, the queen reclaiming her kingdom. 3 weeks later, Amara returned to Chateau Blanc. This time, she wore a crisp white Armani blazer and carried the same Hermès purse, now professionally cleaned and restored. Her hair was styled in elegant waves, her pearls gleaming under the restaurant's soft lighting. The difference was in how everyone looked at her. The new hostess, Maria Santos, greeted her with genuine warmth. Mrs. Torino, your table is ready. Right this way, please. Table 7. The exact spot where water had pooled around her chair just 21 days ago. Now it housed a small bronze plaque, in honor of dignity restored. Management. The dining room buzzed with its usual energy, but something fundamental had shifted. The staff moved differently, spoke differently, treated every customer like they mattered. Vincent slid into the seat across from her, impeccable as always in his navy suit. How does it feel? Amara surveyed the room where she'd been humiliated, where she'd sat dripping and alone while strangers recorded her pain, where she'd waited for thunder while drowning in silence. Like justice, she said simply. Sarah Carter approached their table, no longer the panicked manager, but a woman transformed by necessity. She'd survived the corporate purge by embracing complete reform. Mrs. Torino, Mr. Torino, thank you for dining with us again. Her respect was genuine now, earned through weeks of proving that change was possible. How is everything this evening? Perfect, Amara replied, and meant it. The changes were visible everywhere. New staff wore pins reading Dignity First. Training certificates hung behind the hostess station. A customer feedback tablet sat prominently by the entrance, streaming reviews directly to corporate headquarters in real time. The Torino protocol is working, Sarah continued. Customer satisfaction is up 34%. Staff retention improved by 60%. We've had zero discrimination complaints since implementation. Vincent nodded approvingly. And the other locations? All 15 restaurants now operate under the same standards. Monthly bias training is mandatory. Customer service scores have never been higher. Sarah's voice carried pride mixed with hard-learned humility. We've become the industry model for inclusive hospitality. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. The restaurant that had humiliated a black woman was now leading the industry in racial equity. Their server appeared, a young black man named Marcus who moved with confidence that would have been impossible under the old regime. Good evening, Mrs. Torino, Mr. Torino. Can I start you with still or sparkling water? The question that might have seemed innocent 3 weeks ago now carried weight. Everyone in the industry knew the story. The water that had been a weapon was now served with respect. Sparkling, please, with lime. Amara's response was gracious, normal, but Marcus understood the significance. Right away, ma'am, and thank you for everything you did, for all of us. He meant it. The Torino incident had rippled through New York's restaurant industry like a shockwave. Discrimination complaints were down citywide. Staff diversity was up. Treatment of customers had improved across the board. Fear was a powerful motivator, but Vincent and Amara had been careful to channel it toward positive change. At table 12, where Mrs. Pemberton had once filmed Amara's humiliation, a young black family enjoyed their anniversary dinner. The parents looked relaxed, confident they'd be treated well. Their daughter colored quietly in a provided activity book. "That would never have happened before," Vincent observed, following Amara's gaze. "No, they would have been seated by the kitchen door and ignored until they left." Amara accepted her sparkling water from Marcus with a smile. "Now look." The family was at the prime table receiving attentive service, clearly enjoying their special evening. Sarah's tablet chimed with an update. The Hartford location just received their 5-star certification from the Connecticut Civil Rights Commission. All 15 restaurants are now officially recognized as exemplary inclusive establishments. The certification program hadn't existed 3 weeks ago. It was created in direct response to the Chateau Blanc incident as state governments scrambled to prevent similar public relations disasters. Vincent checked his phone. "The Times wants to interview you again for their Sunday magazine cover story. From Humiliation to Hope, How One Woman's Courage Changed an Industry," Amara recited the proposed headline. "Think they'll get it right? Does it matter? The change is real whether they understand it or not." And the change was extraordinary. The video footage from that night, carefully edited to protect Amara's privacy while documenting the discrimination, had become a case study in business schools nationwide. Harvard, Wharton, and Stanford all used the incident to teach corporate crisis management and ethical leadership. More importantly, it had become a shield for countless other customers who might have faced similar treatment. Marcus returned with their appetizers, his service impeccable. "The chef wanted you to know that your salmon is from the same Scottish supplier as always, but now we verify that all our vendors maintain diverse hiring practices." Even the supply chain had been reformed. The Torino influence extended far beyond the dining room into the entire ecosystem of hospitality businesses. "How are Brittany and Derek doing?" Amara asked Sarah directly. The question caught the manager off guard. After everything they'd put her through, Amara was asking about their welfare. Brittany struggled at first. The arrest record made it hard to find work, but she enrolled in a community college program for hospitality management. She's studying bias awareness and inclusive service. Derek took a job at a smaller restaurant in Queens, much humbler now. "Good. I don't want their lives destroyed. I want their behavior changed." It was a crucial distinction that had guided every decision in the aftermath. Justice, not vengeance. Reform, not revenge. Vincent's phone buzzed with another update. The federal civil rights settlement was finalized today. All funds going to the National Urban League and the NAACP Legal Defense Fund as requested. The $2.3 million settlement, small change to the Torino Empire but significant to civil rights organizations, would fund training programs and legal advocacy for discrimination victims nationwide. "What about the new hiring initiatives?" Amara asked. Sarah brightened. "We've partnered with historically black colleges and universities to create our management pipeline. 20% of our managers now come from underrepresented backgrounds. The diversity has actually improved our customer base significantly." It turned out that inclusive restaurants attracted more diverse clientele, who spent more money and provided better reviews. Equity was profitable. A notification chimed on Sarah's tablet. She glanced at it and smiled. The International Restaurant Association just announced they're creating the Torino Award for Inclusive Excellence, annual recognition for establishments that demonstrate exceptional commitment to dignity and equality. Amara and Vincent exchanged glances, their names attached to an award for the very values that should have been standard all along. "It's a good start," Amara said diplomatically. As they finished their meal, the restaurant hummed with the energy of an establishment that had found its soul. Staff moved with purpose, customers felt welcome, and the atmosphere radiated the warmth that comes when people are treated with genuine respect. Marcus approached with their check, then hesitated. "Mrs. Torino, I just wanted to say, what you did wasn't just about you. My little sister started her first restaurant job last week. She feels safe because of what you went through, because you stood up." Amara reached across the table and squeezed Vincent's hand. The gesture was small, but it contained multitudes of shared understanding. They had turned her humiliation into a shield for others, her pain into protection, her silence into systemic change. As they prepared to leave, Amara looked one last time at Table 7, at the small bronze plaque that marked where dignity had been lost and then reclaimed. The water stains were gone, but the lesson remained. Sometimes the most powerful revolutions began with a single person refusing to accept the unacceptable. "Ready to go home?" Vincent asked, offering his arm. "Yes," Amara replied, walking tall through the restaurant that had once tried to break her spirit, but would forever remember the night she broke their system instead. 6 months after that night, Amara Johnson Torino stood before 200 corporate executives at the National Restaurant Association's annual conference. The same Hermes purse sat on the podium beside her. The same pearls gleamed at her throat, but everything else had changed. "Dignity," she began, her voice carrying easily through the silent ballroom, "should never require protection, but sometimes it does." The audience hung on every word. These were the people who ran America's hospitality industry, and they all knew what had happened at Chateau Blanc. More importantly, they knew what had happened after. "The night I sat soaking wet in your colleague's restaurant, I learned something important about power. Not the kind that comes from money or connections, but the kind that comes from refusing to accept the unacceptable." Behind her, a screen displayed the statistics that had transformed an industry. Discrimination complaints down 47% nationwide. Customer diversity up 31%. Employee satisfaction ratings at historic highs. The Torino effect had rippled far beyond New York. "My husband didn't save me that night," Amara continued, her eyes finding Vincent in the front row. "He simply ensured that my choice to stay and fight had consequences. The real power was in the staying, in the refusing to be diminished by other people's cruelty." The speech was being live-streamed to 50,000 viewers. Comments flooded in from restaurant workers, customers, and advocates worldwide. The movement had grown beyond anything anyone could have predicted. 6 months ago, I was just a customer waiting for dinner. Today I'm standing before you as proof that silence is not golden when dignity is at stake. In the weeks following the incident, Amara had received 15,000 emails from people sharing their own stories of discrimination. Each one reinforced that her experience hadn't been isolated. It had been systemic. The water they threw at me was meant to wash away my sense of belonging. Instead, it washed away their ability to hide. She paused, letting that sink in. "Every drop that hit my face became evidence. Every moment I stayed became testimony. Every second of humiliation became a seed of transformation." The bronze plaque at Chateau Blanc had been joined by similar markers at restaurants across the country. Small reminders that dignity was not negotiable, that respect was not optional. Today, young people like Marcus, who served me last week at that same restaurant, don't have to wonder if their skin color will affect their service. Families like the Washingtons at Table 12 don't have to question whether they're truly welcome. Her voice softened, becoming more personal. But this isn't really about restaurants. It's about how we see each other, how we treat strangers, how we respond when we witness cruelty. The camera panned across faces in the audience. Restaurant owners, hotel executives, service industry leaders, people with the power to create change or maintain the status quo. That night, 50 people watched me suffer. Only one person in that room had the power to stop it immediately, and he wasn't there yet. But the others? They all had the power to stand up, to say, "That's enough," to choose courage over comfort. The uncomfortable truth settled over the room. Bystander complicity was as destructive as active discrimination. The Torino Protocol isn't really about training manuals or sensitivity seminars. It's about recognizing that every customer, every human being deserves to be seen as someone's beloved, someone's mother, daughter, sister, someone who matters. She lifted her water glass, sparkling with lime, served with perfect respect. Water can humiliate, but it can also cleanse. It can drown, but it can also baptize. What happened to me was painful, but it became powerful because we refused to let it end with my tears. The standing ovation lasted 4 minutes. But more important than applause were the policy changes announced immediately after. mandatory bias training across all member establishments, customer advocacy programs, and the creation of a $10 million fund for discrimination victims. Change is like water, Amara concluded as the applause died down. It finds every crack, flows around every obstacle, and eventually transforms the landscape completely. As she left the stage, her phone buzzed with a text from Vincent. "Proud of you. See you at home." But there was another message that made her smile wider, from Marcus, the young server. "Mrs. T, my sister got promoted to assistant manager today. The future is different because of you." The future. That's what this had always been about. That night at Chateau Blanc, she'd been fighting for more than her own dignity. She'd been fighting for every person who would walk into a restaurant tomorrow, next week, next year. Every customer who deserved to be seen as fully human. The water had dried, the humiliation had ended, but the change would last forever. Your voice matters, your story matters, your dignity matters. Have you witnessed discrimination? Experienced it yourself? Share your story in the comments below. Let's build a database of experiences that drives real change. Every time someone stands up, speaks out, or refuses to accept the unacceptable, they make it easier for the next person to do the same. Subscribe to Black Voices Uncut for more stories of quiet power overcoming loud prejudice. Hit that notification bell, because every voice matters, and every story can spark a movement. Share this video if you believe dignity should never require protection. Tag someone who needs to see this strength. Because sometimes the most powerful revolutions begin with a single person refusing to accept that this is just how things are. The water may dry, but the change flows forever.
At Black Voices Uncut, we don't polish away the pain or water down the message. We tell it like it is because the truth deserves nothing less. If today's story spoke to you, click like, join the conversation in the comments, and subscribe so you'll be here for the next Uncut Voice.